Yo, JD here, Limitless, and as you can see, we are on F1 2021 here today, and in this video, we are actually back on PlayStation doing some open lobbies. So, going to be showing you 3 open lobby races here today, which was very fun to do. And I will be doing these on a weekly basis as well. And yeah, you can see by the title of this video, basically going to give you my thoughts on why I actually enjoy playing on this platform the most over PC and Xbox itself. But to start off here, we're at Portimao, and this is a complete open lobby. So if you'd like to be involved in this, then make sure you follow me on Instagram, because I always post when I go live. See a bit of contact here. But if you'd like a guaranteed invite into these, then part of my YouTube membership, that is one of the perks if you click the join button. But you can see just going through the carnage as usual, and these series of races are probably the most fun I've actually had playing the F1 2021 games for a little while, because as of recently has some good pace, but usually is the same when it comes towards the end of the game's life cycle, but a few frustrating moments recently. So it's just quite nice to just jump in here and yeah, just have a lot of fun. As we say that, but then this guy completely dive bombs us out of nowhere. So back into P13, P12. So we're just going to return the favour. Wasn't as bad as what he did, and now we're back into P11. But yeah, I really enjoy just driving on this platform, more so than even PC, because the thing I don't like about PC is that there are just so many mods that you can do where people do cheat and hack. Also, it really depends on the PC you have. You have to spend quite a lot of money, especially to run the F1 games, which is not very optimal on Steam, as we all know. You need to have a very, very powerful PC if you want to run that smoothly with semi-decent graphics. So I just quite like having a plug-in and play system as you do on the consoles, but I'm playing on the PlayStation, just the normal PS4 here, so not even the PS5 or the PS4 Pro, and I would say the graphics are just as good as they are on my Xbox Series X, and so are the loading times as well. So there really isn't that much difference in performance between the two. And I'm planning to actually get a PlayStation 5 for the F1 22 game, which I'm really, really looking forward to. But aside from that, the other thing I love is just the racing on here. There just seems to be a lot more players. Definitely seems to be a lot more competitive, a lot more respect between the drivers as well, which I know one lobby can very much differ from another, but it's just a very smooth experience. I haven't encountered really any issues with the user interface or the software or anything compared to Xbox, which is a very, very glitchy platform, especially online. And the ability to invite people to lobbies, the invite only function doesn't even work in Xbox still has never been fixed since we have had the F1 21 game. But yeah, I just really enjoy playing on this platform, and yeah, the driving in here, I always have fun. It's always very competitive, and people, you can see some people are not always the cleanest, but that's something you will have to get used to when you play in open lobbies. But most of the time, people do race quite fairly as well. But you can see we have now, after going back to last at the start of the race, gone back up to P5 here, and the guy ahead of me is a pretty fast driver. We've got GFO Spanias behind me. I'm sorry if I said that wrong. He's a good friend of mine, a very fast driver himself, and I seem to be encountering just very fast drivers on PlayStation. There seems to be definitely increased level of competitiveness as well. So maybe next game, especially with the crossplay, if that works, then PS5 will most likely be my home hub for F1 22 and onwards. But please let me know what your experiences are playing on these platforms. If you've had the chance to play on multiple ones, which one do you like? PC is obviously good, it does feel smooth, but just having to always use your keyboard, and yeah, the game sometimes just tabs out, and sometimes there's just little issues on PC that kind of don't make it a smooth experience. And with this, the input lag on PlayStation is pretty much almost exactly the same as PC, whereas on Xbox, the biggest complaint I have is really the input lag you have. It's a big difference between what you're doing and then how long it takes for the game to react itself. PC is definitely the best in this regard, but PlayStation is almost identical, just barely behind that. So yeah, for me, it's just a much easier platform to play. I really like the user interface. Don't have to muck around with a keyboard. You can just use your wheel to navigate through the controls, and don't have to tab out a game. And the graphics, I think, are really good as well. I really have no complaints with this. And also just the feeling, the force feedback I have is really nice playing on this console. And I actually think it's probably my favorite out of all of them, despite having the same settings for each one. But you can see here now we're on lap 5 of this race. Saved a bit of ERS, and what we're going to do here, we're going to go down the inside. Yes, we are. And very kind from these drivers. So good awareness from the Alfa Romeo ahead of me. And that's what I mean. Most of the time, the people who are really competitive just seem to be very fair as well. And I know it's something you can't really confirm just from one lobby, but in my experience when playing these, it just seems to be, yeah, just a lot more fun and fair when we're actually playing together. But you can see here, guy ahead of me has a 3-second time penalty as well, so we've actually managed to do quite a good comeback, so actually catching up to the leader again. And we're going to use some ERS going round this last corner. His red light is flashing, but I don't think we're going to be close enough on this occasion, and we're going to come home in P2 in this race. Only half a second behind after our first lap. I thought was not a bad comeback at all. But now we're going to move on to Silverstone, and this is probably one of the most intense 5-lap races I've ever had in my life, actually. This actually felt like an esports race. It was just absolutely insane, and the pace was pretty crazy as well. So we're starting in P6. Get quite a good start here, going up into pretty much P5 immediately. You do get a track validation just to avoid that guy. And are we going to go down the inside here? The answer's no, so we'll go maybe think about going around the outside, just making a bit of contact, but still staying on the track. Going back to 7th, now 6th, now back to 7th again, and very lucky that we didn't get collected there. And now we are back in 6th place, but the guys ahead of me, GFO, John and Spanish again, are incredibly quick drivers. And let's see now what we can do here. So Silverstone is probably the track that I've done the most in 5-lappers itself, but it's a very difficult track to overtake on. So we're going to do our best to see how many positions we can make up here as people go side by side through Beckett's. And Beckett's, that's our second invalidation, so one more of those and we will get a time penalty. So we're going to try and overtake Amuto Frito as he doesn't really fight for the position too hard. And now we're up into P5. See, leaders are just going through the last chicane now, and I think the two ahead of me are going to be the next two fastest people in this hobby. Has got Energy Zeus, who has set the fast lap over 31.2, which is actually a pretty good opening lap. So confirming everyone ahead of us does seem to have a good level of speed here. And the setup I'm running here is the one I use in my Discord, and I use in my recently race at Silverstone. And as I said in the first race, just the force feedback just feels just much smoother on this. PC, it's not bad at all, but I always feel the car is very disconnected from the game. Kind of feels like I'm driving on a hovercraft. I just don't really have much feedback at all. Maybe I have to tweak the wheel settings a bit more on PC, but on PS4, using pretty much identical settings, I just have so much more feedback through the wheel and really have the same level of input delay where it's literally next to none at all. But as we're coming through into here, someone's made a bit of a mistake. Energy Zeus has made a bit of a mistake here, so we're going to turn off the ERS. So not going to be close enough, and let's see what we can do. So try to get a really good run on the Ferrari. So really crucial that we make this move, otherwise we're not going to have enough laps to do this. So we've got to go around the outside of him, leaving room on the inside to get the inside for the final rate. And now we are up into P4 of this race, 27.8 that everyone seems to be doing right now, and anything in the 27s is a fairly competitive time as well, especially for people who don't have a huge amount of experience. So never going to try and get past this Mercedes as soon as we can, because we're currently the third man in this DRS train. Want to be the second man, or I think we're the fourth man in this yeah, we are the fourth man in this DRS train. So doing a purple first sector, and you can see we just have so much rotation in the car here. So it's thinking about going down the inside for this one, thinking a little bit better of it, using the ERS on the exit once again. And let's see what we can do here. We really need to try and overtake him on this lap if possible. Not going to do the overtake going to this, as we've got GFO behind us. And let's see if we could get a good exit onto this Mackett's and Beckett's, and we do get a pretty nice exit. So our car's quite slippery in a straight line here. Decided to turn off the ERS as these two are going side by side. So we're going to try and maybe do the same thing again as we did last lap to the Ferrari. So using it here, does he go defensive? No, he doesn't. We're going to get on the inside. And all we're going to get we've done, leaving room on the inside, trying to go over the outside of him. And we do a very nice move to get up into P3 in this race as we did fast up, and then is beaten by multiple people there doing low 27. So the pace is very strong at this stage, as we're now behind DRS Neil, someone who I race with quite a lot, and Spanish is in the lead. So the goal now is to try and put as much pressure on Neil to really force the overtake on Spanish if I can. And let's see what happens here. He doesn't go for the overtake going to this one. Still have quite a decent amount of ERS on board as well, so I'm going to try and conserve that as much as I possibly can. Just using a bit here just to generate a bit of momentum going up the straight and trying to be as close as we can. Going through the exit of Mags and Beckers as Spanish makes a bit of a mistake here. So we're going to keep our ERS back, and we're in a very nice position here. So maybe if we could get both of these cars, let's try to get a really good exit. Now we're going to be using the battery power because we can't afford to be in third place going into this last lap. So DRS Neil is going to go for the overtake. Are we going to do the same thing as well, making a tiny bit of contact? And I think we're going to be in the lead coming to here. So Spanish still is in second place, and now we've gone up into first place. But was it really the position we wanted to be going into this last lap? Because the DRS is incredibly powerful. So now we've just got to try and deliver as much raw pace as we can if we want to try and win this race. So this is pretty much a qualifying lap. Didn't use any ERS at the start of the lap either. Now we're going to be using it here, and we get such a good exit with the traction going through into this first sector. And now the goal is to try and put as much distance as possible before the next DRS zone on the exit of Maggots and Beckett. So just giving it absolutely everything for these seekers of cause, and doing that very nicely indeed. Using the ERS here, so again, want to try and put pretty close to almost half a second before Maggots and Beckett if we can, and doing cops really nicely. He actually has a 2-second time penalty, but we want to still try and win this track. So he's actually quite close coming through to here, but do we navigate through this quite well? The answer is yes, and we get such a good exit coming off here. Gap is almost half a second. Go purple in the middle sector using the rest of our ERS, and he's not going to be close enough. So unless we make a catastrophic mistake going into this last sector, looks like we should have this done, and then going through into the last chicane into the right. What is this lap time going to be as we cross the line? It's going to be a 27.0, and we didn't really have as much ERS as we would have liked as well. So that was a pretty nice comeback and some very good racing, very competitive, intense racing there. Now we arrive at Monza, the final race in this little event that we did. So we've got 5 fights, and as they go out now, we get a pretty good launch. So Ferrari has a really horrible start, and using the ERS going to here, try and go around the outside potentially, because you don't want to be clogged up on the inside. And Mercedes and spins, making a bit of contact. So another kind of a Hamilton Verstappen reverse going through into that turn 2, but thankfully we managed to both make it through. And Yessi is a guy who raced with quite a few lobbies. He's a very fast driver, but doesn't like to give up a position at all. So we actually go for the switchback here. So McLaren, I don't know what happened, kind of resets to the track, going through into there, but he tries to go around the outside, going through it here, and he does. So we're leaving some room and making a little bit of contact, but he's still going around the outside, going into here. Don't know how we did lose the car going through to there. And now going up into Ascari, he still wants to go down the inside. So coming through into, we left a bit of room on the inside, but we still somehow managed to make it through there. So I think he had to go on the curb quite a bit, and now we are up into P3 in this race. Spanius is trying to get the overtake on him as well, and now the gap is just under 3 seconds to Olav, who's the leader, just done at the 22.6. And now let's see what we can do. You can see changing the brake bias to 51. This is exactly the same setup as I use on Xbox. So a lot of the setups I use it on every single platform. I don't really have to change it too much. The only time I really change it is maybe when I play on PC, because I think you could get away with a lot more of an aggressive setup. So maybe you could always increase the rear anti-roll bar, as this guy has gone off in P2, the AlphaTauri. So now we've been promoted into there, and the gap between myself and the leader hasn't really changed that much at all. So not using the ERS here because we want to try and potentially use quite a lot on the last 2 laps. I was hoping that the leader was pushing quite hard with his battery pack at this point of the race itself, because I knew my race pace was really strong around this track, as we saw in BRS. And you can see the gap has only come down by just over a tenth on this lap. DRS is activated on the next one. So coming off the exit here, we are using now a bit of the ERS. And what do we do here? It's a 21.1, so only around about 2/10 faster. And yeah, all you could do at this stage is just hope that the guy ahead hasn't used, or has used, quite a lot of his battery pack. So we're just gonna keep on pushing as hard as we can, save it for pretty much the penultimate lap to really push. And you can see getting just outside the DRS zone of GFO behind, taking the chicane really, really nicely. And looks like Olav is pushing with the battery pack here, because the gap has extended up to 3.1. That's how we get our first track invalidation. Looks like Spanish is trying to get within our DRS zone, so we are going to be using just a little bit of it here just to try and stop him from sitting within our DRS. Going for a Ascari, could have cut that a bit more on the inside, but then the guy in the lead has made a huge error, and now we're into the lead. But Spanius is in our DRS zone, so he is in the box seat where he can save quite a lot of ERS as he is sitting behind us. So we're not going to use any of the battery power here. We're going to save it completely for this last lap, because we need something to really defend with. And I didn't really go mind if he actually overtook me on this lap, so I could get a DRS for the main straight. So don't think we're going to be using anything here. We're just going to save all of our battery as much as possible. It's coming through into this first sector. So you're about a tenth down since we haven't used any of the battery. Really nice that you don't have to mount these curbs anymore. Pretty much just have to kiss them. And going through here, just using the car as much as possible. That's our second warning. So one more of that and it will be a 3-second time penalty. So I have to be a little bit extra careful with the track limits now. You can see Jesse is just outside the DRS zone, so he shouldn't really be so much of a threat, and doing this quite okay, but it's quite close here. But we do have quite a bit of ERS to use, so the thing is I could actually maybe let him pass, but I don't think he would maybe want to get past it. He might want to save it, or no, I have to actually use it here, because if I just let him pass, then he could just drive past without using any of the ERS and then defend for the second part of the lap. So I decided to actually make him really work for this as much as possible. So I actually got a little bit defensive here, spotted the braking point quite nicely, because the second DRS zone going to Ascari is definitely a lot harder to overtake than it is into the first. So we've done a good job so far at the beginning of the lap, coming into chicane, trying to put as much distance as we can before going into that second DRS zone and get a pretty nice exit off here, going into the first right-hand, a really fast one, making sure we don't get a track limit warning, getting a really good exit, trying to get a good exit here. We get a really, really nice exit. So using a bit of the ERS, but then turning it off halfway up the straight, because it's also the straight after Ascari. So making sure we get a really good run coming through into here. Now using the ERS on the exit, and it looks like we actually have more battery in here because we are pulling away on this Delta. So it's been another very, very nice race coming into Parabolic, and that really committing into the corner. Keep it nice and tight to line, and going across the line is going to be a 20.4 purple last sector. And that is those 3 races wrapped up. And yeah, I would say playing on PlayStation for me is just the most enjoyable and satisfying experience out of all the platforms itself. So thank you to everyone who's been joining these lobbies. Hopefully I will see you there in the future. Make sure you sign up and register to Bybit with the QR code here, because I will be doing a F1 22 giveaway at the end of this month to anyone who does register to that. Also, we'll be announcing some winners for people who've already registered to this, and that would have been today, but it will be on Monday or Tuesday next week, where I will be announcing that as well. So thank you so much for supporting the videos. I really hope you enjoyed this, and I will catch you very, very soon. Peace.